Hello, welcome to Young and Driven Next Gen Changemakers with me, your host, Violet Muchelu. This brand new podcast is where we spotlight bold, inspiring stories from emerging leaders and entrepreneurs who are driving change across various different industries with passion and purpose. But you will also hear from seasoned trailblazers who are making waves across various different sectors, and they'll be sharing their lessons that shape their journeys and the legacies they're building. And I am delighted to welcome a formidable force of a seasoned leader, my very first podcast launch. Hi, Chenai. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, Violet. I'm so excited to be. Am I really the first? Am I really
You
the
are
first
the first. It had to be you. I couldn't think of anybody else. You are the first. And I'm so
You didn't
honored.
tell me. I feel very special. I feel super special.
Thank you. Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. I just honestly, I was so excited about working on this podcast. And as I said, I really want it to be a focus on spotlighting stories from emerging leaders. But actually, I think there's also a space for people like you who are doing amazing work and have been in various industries for many, many years. And I just, what I consider to be a change maker. So you are the perfect person for it, really. And I kind of don't want to give your introduction too much away, but I would love for you to do it yourself. But a little bit about Chenai. So she's a prop tech and impact investor. Hopefully I've said that right. Correct me if I'm wrong. She's also a founder. She's also a business transformation leader, and she's very big on championing sustainable and ethical innovation. And the other exciting part, she's not all business. She's an amazing mom. She's a wife. She's worked across 3 continents. She speaks 3 languages. And I quote, she also says, nobody loves karaoke more than me. So did I get that right?
Yeah, you did. And that's what's on my LinkedIn, because I always feel like people connect with people at the end of the day. So I try to, every time I introduce myself or I talk about myself, even in a professional sense, I try to pepper in a bit about who's the person behind all the stuff, because that's
In the fact that that's your LinkedIn profile as well, for me, that just says a lot about who you are. And as you say, it just adds that human element. It makes it interesting. I don't know about you. I'm slightly digressing here. I know we're going to get into the podcast properly very soon, but I hate when I go on, people's LinkedIn profiles and it's like, oh, I was this, I was yada, 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 the whole CV, but there's nothing human or interesting or humorous about your profile. I want to get to know the person behind the job title, right?
Absolutely. And because at the end of the day, people do business with people and they
Right.
react really well to authenticity. And that's what I'll talk about a little bit in the podcast when we get to it. And it helps people build trust. They're like, who am I actually dealing with? So it gives you a bit of a flavor. Even if it's something as ridiculous as the fact that I am obsessed with karaoke.
Do you know what? We'll have to do a karaoke night at some point this summer. So,
What's your song? What's your go-to song?
oh my
What's the
gosh,
song that
anything
you...
by Destiny's Child or anything by I love Fergie. That song, Glamorous. Gee,
That's fun.
we're flying first class. Oh my goodness, I'm singing. This is terrible. This is not great.
Yeah. I have 2 versions. I have, like, if I'm doing wholesome karaoke with
Oh,
a mixed group of people, I always love going for Tina Turner
oh,
or even a Teenage Dirtbag.
oh,
Those are
that's
2
a good
very good
one.
ones. But the one I do if I'm with my friends and it's like a bit of a dirty karaoke, for years and years, I've really loved the song by Meek Mill, I'm a Boss.
Oh, yes,
So
yes,
I'll
yes,
always do
yes,
that one.
yes,
They
yes,
even played
yes,
it at my
yes, yes.
wedding and I was like,
You play that at your wedding? I love
of
that.
course I played it at my wedding, in my
Oh,
wedding dress, dancing around. And I joke that if I ever die, not if I die, because we're going to die, when I die, if the people who know and love me don't play that at my funeral, something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong when the coffin is going down. It's such a nice favorite song.
okay, I've made note. I'll make sure it gets done, but not for another 20, 30 years, 40 years, so let's not worry about that for now. But listen, okay, let's get into it. So I want to hear all about your career. Before we talk about where you are now, let's take it back a little bit. Talk to me about a bold move that you made early in your career that helps define who you are today as a leader.
Oh my goodness, how much time do you have? So, Violet, my career has been a meandering road in all the best possible ways. So, if you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see that I proudly have emblazoned that I have a PhD on there. And occasionally people actually ask, well, what is your PhD in? So Violet introduced me as I'm a prop tech investment, I'm a business transformation leader. But 10 years ago, it's now 11 years ago, I was a research scientist. So I actually have a PhD in synthetic organic chemistry. Until the age of about 30, I was a scientist, and I studied chemistry. I did my bachelor's degree. I studied in the US. I thought chemistry is pretty good. I liked it. I always loved it. In high school, I was pretty good at it. Got my first job working at GSK outside Boston. And my first boss was like, Chenai, look, you're really good at this. If you want to go far as a scientist, if you don't want to play games, get a PhD and do it
Mm.
now. He said, do it now before you start making so much money that the thought of going back to being a student, brings fear into your heart. So just apply now, go now before you get used to making money. So I followed his advice. I applied to grad school. I got into a really good PhD program at the University of Pennsylvania, and then I transferred to ETH, which is a university in Switzerland. And most of the people who do what I studied, they work in drug discovery. So really helping pharmaceutical companies, biotech startups with the element of figuring out how to design and how to synthesize, which is how to make their drugs. That would have been my career path. And there I was in this lab in Switzerland, a really, really competitive lab with people who lived and breathed chemistry, woke up to read chemistry journals. And then I realized I was miserable. I was so unhappy. And I looked around and I was like, what have I done with my life? This is not what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. And you could really tell there were two things that made it very clear for me. I was in a really, really competitive lab with, obviously some of the best scientists in my field. And I didn't care about it. I was pretty like, I would say I was probably pretty mediocre. I wasn't really applying myself. I was just doing the day to day to get by and dreaming of a time when I could spend my days doing anything but what I was supposed to be doing. And I decided, you know what? This is a waste of time. I want to quit. I called my dad. I was so depressed. I said, Dad, I'm so depressed. I can't do this anymore. I want to quit and actually do something I care about. And he said, Chennai, don't quit. Don't quit. Just finish your PhD and you can pivot and do anything you want afterwards.
Mm.
Because if you quit now, you have nothing to show for the investment that you've put up until this
Right.
point, which is a massive investment. But if you just finish and decide to do anything else, somewhere out there will be like, this girl must be pretty smart. She has a PhD. So if you decide to do something else, you can always do it. So I took my dad's advice. He also put me on the phone with some of his friends in Zimbabwe. There was one guy who had a PhD in physics, and he like worked for the World Bank, and a couple of other people. And he said, look, it's possible. What you've done now doesn't define you. And so I pivoted. But it was quite difficult because for many people who are listening to this, I was 29. Until I was 29, I was a student
Mm.
because it takes a very long time to get a PhD in that discipline. And also, the idea is that you've put in the work now, use it, take a step back. After you finish your PhD, surely you should do something that shows what you've been doing all this time. And I completely said, I don't want to do any of it. I finished and I started again in a different path. I went to become a management consultant. I joined a company called McKinsey and
Mhm.
I became an associate at their office in Zurich because I'd moved to Switzerland. And that was a big shift for me, right? And many of the people I speak to, like I've hired people, mentored people who are in their 20s, and I'll often say to them when they're freaking out about their career, like, oh, where am I going? When I was your age, I was living I was sleeping on a single bed, living in like a one-room studio in Zurich. I hadn't even had my first job. And money was a stress for me because I was a student. So sometimes I didn't have enough money to go off a copy. Totally different. And within a couple of years, it all changed. So that was a huge shift. And how can you invest all that time in something and completely shift? But I did it.
I love your honesty. And tell me a little bit about what it was like. Because you mentioned obviously you're from Zimbabwe, a fellow Zimbabwean sister. Yes. And there's something about, I suppose, African culture and our parents obviously having this idea around certain jobs and career paths that we should be followed. So, scientist, lawyer, etc. And I sort of I'm generalizing it, but there's a pressure sometimes to sort of do what your parents, kind of force you to do, shall I say. But it sounds like your dad was very supportive. He's like, yeah, just you've invested all this time, just finish it and then you can do whatever you want. Talk to me about that.
You know what? So to give credit to my parents are actually, my mom and my dad are very unique and they're actually really cool people. My mom, she's not even the kind of person who's ever put pressure on me or said, you have to do this. Her whole thing has always been like, obviously it's important to do something that, pays the bills,
Right.
but she's quite open-minded. And my dad is an entrepreneur. Like he
Okay.
studied economics. He has a degree, he got his degree like in the 1960s and he pursued the path of of being an entrepreneur. So I cannot blame my parents. I cannot say it was my parents. What I
Mm.
will say is that I grew up in a society where a lot of times, whether it was it's like around you, the teachers, the way that they talk about the career and the future,
Yeah.
there's just not that many paths given to you in terms of like how to be successful. So when I was studying chemistry, the questions I would ask was, how well does it pay? Can I get a visa? Will they give me a job that sponsors my visa? Does it pay well? Will they sponsor my visa? Basically, if those two things are checked, and chemistry did it, paid well. I never, ever, ever, ever said, will it be fun? Will I enjoy it? Because enjoyment is not supposed to come from your work. It's supposed to your friends, your hobbies, and I have buckets of hobbies. I just didn't think, it just never crossed my mind that I should be like having loads of fun in my work.
Mm.
That's not what work is for. And it wasn't because of this huge pressure from my parents. I would say it's more about the society we grew up, looking around, the way people talk about if you're a very ambitious person. It was almost like you're either an artist who doesn't care about money at all and therefore sad and broke. Like the expectation is you kind of do something that's a bit boring and
And it sounds like your entrepreneurial spirit really comes from your dad, in that sort of upbringing that you had, and it's very much.
too. Yeah, both my parents. Yeah, my parents. They're cool. They're both unusual.
Oh, I love that. I feel like there's something around taking risks, right, when it comes to forging one's career, but also I think more importantly, thinking about one's career on a bigger scale.
Mhm.
And by that, I mean being a change maker. The true definition of being a change maker to me speaks to just more than your own career path, but actually really affecting change either in your industry or society as a whole. So yes, you're one of those people, certainly in the work that you do and have done and continue to do. So I want to understand a little bit more about, any risks that you've taken that have enabled you to be on the path that you are on now. How did that feel for you, having to take risks? I'm sure you have. I feel like you have. Whether personal or professional, because risks might be professional or personal as well.
Yeah, do you know what? I used to think I was pretty risk averse. So my dad is an entrepreneur. So I know that the life of an entrepreneur is not for punks. I saw what it actually looked
Tell
like on the
them.
ground. It's not for punks. So I was actually a little bit like one of those people who was like, I can have a really good life just having this cushy corporate job. Like, sometimes I'll be like, oh, if I start this business, how much could I make in profit? And when you do the maths about how successful my business, any business I start, has to be in order to make as much money as I make just in my mid-level corporate job, now compare it to where I could get to financially in a senior role on the same path that I'm on. For a lot of people, they just stop right there. They're like, it's not worth it. But I did, as you know, I've now founded 3 businesses, and making that jump from a fairly safe corporate environment to being a founder, that was really risky. That was really risky. And it was scary. It was scary. Going from, having a paycheck, knowing where your next paycheck was coming to really like hustling and hunting for your own business, hunting for your own work. You learn a lot about yourself in that space. You learn what you're truly made of. But yeah, that was a big risk. So the first time when I founded my first startup, it was actually with a co-founder. She had the business idea first, and she approached me and said, "Let's flesh this out." And so she'd been working on it for a few months, and I joined, and we spent a couple of years, or just under a couple of years, working on that together. And then I exited my stake in that. So that business is still around. It's called Domna. I exited my stake at the beginning of last year, and then I decided to reinvest the proceeds of that into 2 other businesses that I've basically started. One of them is a startup in Zimbabwe, where I'm from, which nothing gives me more joy than running that business. It's a
Wow.
virtual assistant company. We have all these really amazing people who I've recruited myself one by one, and we built this from scratch. And a lot of times people are like, has the business only been around for this many months? And we're like, yeah, because the team is just on it and we're on it.
Wow.
And that's super exciting, but it's a risk. I remember like speaking to my accountant in the first few months being like, tonight, do you realize how much of a loss you're running? I'm like, yeah, I know. I built financial models. I have one.
You gotta love accountants, right? They're your best friend. Or not, depending on
I
which.
know how much money I've lost, but at the same time, it's really exciting if you back yourself, you invest yourself. And of course, I'm talking about this from an early stage perspective. It's only a few months, but I back myself and I know what it's capable of because I've done it before, in a previous startup that we built from scratch to the ground up. And in the end, when I exited, we had raised 70 million pounds from a private equity firm and made two acquisitions of some pretty big surveying companies in the UK. So
Wow.
I know what is possible, but it's really scary because when you start from a blank sheet of paper, and
Mm.
especially now, I don't have a co-founder in both of my ventures. It's just me. It's myself. And the same thing with Xerox, which I can talk about. We do some advisory and we invest directly in businesses, services-based UK businesses, as well as startups in Africa. So really exciting. We are incubating our first tech startup. We have a really cool founder who's based in Zimbabwe who's building an ed tech app. And we're always on the hunt for more. And it's a
Mm.
very interesting model where we don't have a ton of money to give, but everything that we have in expertise and the resource behind, like, this is how you do what you need to do, we do that. So it's exciting, again, risky because these are like super early stage. And on the more established businesses that we invest in, always again a risk. So it's I've had to completely change. Had to completely change from being someone who really, really relied on the security of a monthly paycheck to somebody I back myself. I think I'm gonna go out and build something that really, really I can put my stamp on. That is like infused with my values, my for the future, my vision for the world. And that's how it all begins.
I love that. That's really powerful. And I want to talk about legacy building as well a little bit later on. So it sounds like to me you're saying there's something around feeling the fear and doing it anyway, but there's also something around being a bit sensible, ensuring you've got some kind of security, whether that would be a regular paycheck, whether that would be support from family or whatever. But also, I think fundamentally, there's something that sounds like that continues to drive you because you're very passionate about the work that you're doing. There's a real purpose to what you're doing. So, despite the fear, you just do it anyway and take that
Yes.
risk, right? Is that fair to say?
Exactly. And you've articulated it a lot better than I feel like I did. It's gonna be scary. Just get on and do it. But obviously be sensible. You have to be sensible. You have to have a bit of a hunting element. You have to have very, very, very type A. I try to like model everything to every scenario and everything moves boop, 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 boop. So the risk taking nature, it didn't necessarily come naturally to me. So I don't take risks. Like there are things that I probably wouldn't do. Like my husband has a stable, very good, stable job. And so I'm not at risk of not being able to pay my mortgage and being like thrown out of my house or not being able to feed, our child. Probably if those were the things that I was facing up against, I wouldn't take some of the risks that I take now. So I do it from a position of privilege. And I think that you always have to factor in your own personal circumstances, where the money I was making was actually really life changing.
Mm.
Many years ago when I had that big corporate job, there were things that were going on in my personal life and people who I had to support financially who genuinely relied on it. And it was life changing, the income that I was bringing in. That would have been a terrible time for me to be like, this is all I'm going out to build. So, you have to also recognize your own circumstances, whether you have to be in a place where you can take those risks.
Yeah. Did you have any mentors along the way or any sort of peer groups that you were part of along this entrepreneurship journey?
I've had so many mentors and sponsors throughout my career. And I feel bad, like if I don't mention them all, but I can mention a few people. One of my really good friends, her name is Callie. I worked with her at a company called Census. She is, she's a chief people officer, extremely strategic, extremely smart, and extremely empathetic. And she's someone whose judgment I have really come to rely on. And she really believes in me, and I love it. Mention, my friend Becky. When I worked at McKinsey, she was a manager at McKinsey. She's Zimbabwean, and I did this thing where you could actually. I was in Switzerland, and you could like filter and find out who all the. I know it's really weird who all the black associates and EMs and partners were. And I filtered and did it. And I literally just reached out to all of them and said, "Hi, I'm here. I'm in the Zurich office. Would love to connect if I can." And I met with her. We met at Nando's in London the next time I was in London, and she totally took me under her wing. And she's someone who, she might even be surprised to hear me say this, but she's someone who I've always gone to for advice, and stuff like that. I'm lucky that in my family, my siblings are all incredibly accomplished, and not everybody has that. But I can call my sister, who's like sharp as a button. She's like, on speed dial. She has the right person to link me up with or the right advice at any
Yeah.
time. Both of my brothers, my brother who lives in the US, he's an accountant and he also has worked in transactions. He's worked in business leadership. He's done all the stuff where I can like lean on him. And my younger brother, who's the same, slightly different profile, he works he's a personal investor. He invests his money in real estate, but he also works as a
Mm.
financial advisor. So very, very different profiles, but siblings. So you can tell them what's the hairy stuff under the hoodie else.
Yeah.
And they give me some of the most honest advice because they
Right.
really care about my outcomes. I've worked for people. I worked for a guy called Mark, who was the CEO of a census, really, really smart, great guy, taught me so much, mentored me. I feel bad. Like, it feels bad when you're asked this because you're like, afterwards, I look back and realize that I forgot someone who was such a big mentor, and I'm like, I can't.
There's a long list. We'll bring you back for another episode. You can add them to that list.
This is just, and honestly, I just picked some people who stuck out. They stuck out for me because they were recent. Like my
Sure.
sister-in-law. I'm gonna not mention my
Yeah.
sister-in-law. My sister-in-law, she came to visit me, and she always is so wise. She gives me the best
Mm,
advice.
mm.
My sister-in-law, Courtney. I'm sure you'll edit this to make me sound more eloquent. But the thing is, do you know what? I'm one of those people who, if you don't edit one thing out, say, I'm one of those people who I have been blessed. People have been so generous with me in
Mm.
terms of opening doors for me, making time for me, giving me advice, giving me opportunities, sharing what they have. And the best people who I admire the most are people who've taught me that many of those people who are most successful, who I admire, are the people who operate in the world understanding that it's abundant. There's enough for all of us. Your success doesn't take anything away from me. And
Yeah.
they're genuinely excited about my success. And they've taught me how to operate that way with other people, whether it's my mentees, with my business
Yeah.
partners, people who work for me. The world is abundant. The
Yeah.
world is abundant. There's
Yeah.
so much for all of us.
There's so many gems in that it could make a whole entire new podcast. I know really I feel like I need to bring you back for another episode at some point. But there's one thing that you mentioned that really stood out to me. I feel like there's something about the way that you navigate the world, and the way that you navigate your career, the underlying current, or maybe it's right at the forefront. You tell me. Audacity. You're very audacious in how you move. Sometimes the ability to be bold enough to ask for help, be bold enough to reach out to people that you might sometimes feel like out of reach, or you're not on the same level, right? So yeah, I feel like there's something and I feel like maybe this is just your personality anyway, but some of these things I'm sure you learned along the way, right? Tell me
I've
more.
seen it. I've seen it. So you know the old saying, you miss 100% of the shots you
Yeah,
don't take.
yeah.
And if you think about it, a lot of the reasons why people are afraid to take shots, depending on what the shot is, maybe you're scared you'll be embarrassed or you're scared you'll fail. Half the time, nobody will even notice if you fail.
Mm,
Embarrassment, nobody will even notice if you do something embarrassing. But one of the things, I'm lucky that I've been able to operate in rooms and around people who come from quite a lot of privilege. And I've seen that attitude, the way that they move through the world. It's almost like there's a sense of entitlement. So why not? Why can't I just, why not me? And it used to blow my mind. I felt like I
yeah.
used to ask for permission. Like I
Mm,
used to wonder, like, how can I possibly do it? I give the example of like feeling perfectly entitled to walk up to a certain type of person
mm,
and just have a chat with them. So I learned that a lot working at McKinsey because you got to work very closely with the senior partners there. In some ways it was non-hierarchical and you got exposure to quite a lot of senior people. And then also watching how the people who did very well in that environment did
mm,
that. And it was through Audacity. Someone once did a study where someone mentioned to me, they said on Friday afternoons, I've noticed that there are some associates, there's like quite junior, who they come into the office and then I see them just like walking around the office, knocking on the different partners' doors, and then they just have a little chin wag. They just go in there and they're like, hey, how are things? How are things? And they don't have anything to talk about. They're
yeah.
not talking about work, Violet. They're just saying, look, I'm here talking
Mm,
this and that. And they do that. And they do that consistently. And she said two things. She said, one, I've noticed that the only people who do that are the men. They were all
mm,
associates. She was like, I've only seen the men doing that. And then I thought to myself, oh, I'd be embarrassed to just go up to one of those senior partners' office and be like, knock, knock, knock. Hi, I'm Chenai. How are you? How are things? What are you doing? It didn't cross my mind. But in some ways, I was a little bit of a slower learner. So then I worked at British Land, which is like a big, you know, listed company. But I could tell that I had some of that infused in me because I remember shortly after I joined, I thought, you know what? I think I want to go around and meet all the people on the Exco. I was on the British Land leadership team, so I was quite senior, but I was like, I want to meet them, see if they have any advice for me. So, I went to the CFO and I said, hi, can we have lunch sometime? I'd love to hear any advice you have for me. And he said, yes. And he took me out to lunch, 1.5 hours. He gave me tons of advice. I still have that stuff written down.
Mm.
And he became my mentor, but he made time for me. And people used to joke, like, "But why are you having lunch with him?" I said, because I asked. And, he's such a nice guy. Probably
Mm.
he would have had lunch if anybody else had come and asked him, but nobody asked. And I had lunch with lots of people simply because I asked. But I had been in an environment where people showed me that you can actually, a lot of times you can actually just go and ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
didn't know. I was waiting for permission. I was waiting for someone to tell me, wait for an introduction or something. And and I think over time, like now I'm quite senior. So I do have the privilege of sometimes when I'm in a room, I have the credentials where I've earned my right to be there. But I've
Mm.
met a lot of people who do have the credentials and they've earned their right to be there. That if
Yeah.
they're from a certain background, they don't always operate like they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're still kind of like asking for permission, and a lot of their interactions and a lot of how they take up space in certain
Mm.
places. And my
Mm.
thing is like, number one, because this is a podcast for the future,
Yeah.
I've been trying to focus my examples on my life earlier on,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that it's relevant.
No, it's
The
perfect.
one thing I would say is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Mm.
Don't You don't know unless you try. So just
Yeah.
take the shot. Don't do anything absolutely ridiculous and embarrassing. But you know what I
Mm.
mean.
Mm.
Maybe a little bit ridiculous and embarrassing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen, right? And if you don't ask, you don't get right. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I completely agree. And it's funny, actually. It's interesting. I'm slightly digressing here, but there's something around the fact that you mentioned that your colleagues who were walking up to the partners and checking in and saying, "Hey, we're men." Also, they're women, right? And I wonder whether there's something around women specifically where we're sort of less confident sometimes. We overthink things and we just don't move in the same audacious way that sometimes men do, and we sort of have to. I think it's good to adopt some of that audacious sauce that men have, for lack of a better word.
Yes. And be prepared for how that's received.
Mm.
Because obviously there's a lot of advice that I hate about women, asking for enough, da, 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 but then when you ask for the same things, you're called aggressive and undone. The reality is that you're going to have to figure out how to navigate it in your own way. I talk about this. I don't live in a bubble. I recognize that there are certain things people will think about me because I'm a black woman, because I'm black, I'm a woman, I'm African, I'm like eccentric, I'm wearing my like big hair and stuff like that. There's a way that I'm going to be perceived, right? And then there are stereotypes that people might have. I don't pretend that those stereotypes don't exist. Them in, and I'm just aware of them. I factor them in. So, and maybe my executive coach. So I have cultivated a very gregarious personality. I am very, very bubbly and warm and bubbly. And it's almost like I'm countering the idea because I know that a lot of people think of Black women as being angry
Mm.
or hard or so I'm like, you can never call me that because I'm already so bubbly. I'm so over bubbly. And I'm not saying that it's not genuine, but I have had to cultivate it in a way to almost like just remove any of that from the outset. So you say there's that. And then there are other things you might have to do, unfortunately, to get ahead to counter whatever other biases people might have based on you. So as a woman, yes, absolutely. There are some of the things that blokes do that we have to adopt, but remember that you have to adapt.
Mm.
You can't copy and paste it and hope that it works for you.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
it doesn't, I'll be the first to tell you, like, I'm sorry. The world's not fair. You have to adjust. But you do have secret sauce as a woman. Some things like
Right.
women have, a lot of women do support each other. And running a startup where right now I'm doing all of the sales and marketing, leaning into your authenticity, your womanness. A lot of my early customers are women who support me. My
Mm.
most um, excited customers who refer me to other people who like lift me up and share their platform with me with
Yeah.
generosity. Other women, and I'm not saying only women can do that. Like some of my
Yeah.
biggest supporters are men. You should take some time to talk about my husband, my long-suffering, amazing husband. But yeah, you know, that's
I love your warmth. I have to say, I was as you were talking, I was remembering. I think you and I went to an event about 6 months ago, at International Women's Day. No, not 6 months
yeah.
ago.
I
It was
think
in
it was
March.
the International Women's Day gala.
That's right. Yeah. And I bumped into, and I think we'd met before, right? Probably like a year before at another event, but we never really sort of interacted. But you were in the bathroom and I was doing my makeup, you were doing your makeup, and you gave me the most biggest warm hug, and you were so inviting. And it just literally felt like I'd known you all my life. And you were like, let's do lunch. Let's catch up properly. So just that one little thing that you did for me, I mean, just really was really quite powerful and quite moving. And I wish more people sometimes did that, because that's all it takes, a bit of a warm smile, a warm conversation. Let's catch up. Let me make time for you, because you're a busy woman. You're busy. You're booked and busy. You've got stuff to do. So the fact that you were so gracious, with wanting to have and catch up, and being so warm and inviting, for
It
me, I
was
think that's,
it was my pleasure. I
yeah.
I probably got more out of our lunch than
Ah,
you got out of it, Violet. So don't undersell. I was being selfish. I just wanted to spend time with you.
I love you for that. I love you for that. No, thank you. Like, you're amazing. You're amazing. Okay, listen, we're nearly at the end. I have a couple more questions. So, and then we're going to go into a little bit of fun talk. I know we've been having lots of fun anyway, but we're going to have, even more fun at the end. Thinking about what you've achieved so far. You've done so much, and I know you've still got so much more to do. What's the next big challenge that you're most excited about? And how does that tie into the legacy that you want to leave? And it kind of almost takes me back a little bit to the point that I made earlier about some of the work that you're doing in Zimbabwe. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your exciting projects and what legacy that you want to leave behind. What does that look like?
Oh my goodness, what a big question. I feel like that wasn't in the list of questions you sent to prepare.
It was, but I've just rephrased it because I've gone off script,
ChatGPT,
as
what should
always.
I answer? ChatGPT,
I've
what
gone off
should I
script.
answer to
I've
this
gone off
question?
script.
ChatGPT, I'm in a podcast and I have been asked what my okay. Legacy. Do you know what? Like, they say that one of my mentors, Becca, she's the one who taught me this. Like, every founder, and I think it's true not just for founders, but for business leaders, we're motivated by one of three things. Like, it's either going to be money or purpose or ego. There are no wrong or right answers. So if
Mm,
it's money, for example, you might say, somebody said to me, like, I have a number. I know that I want to make this much million. Like, and it's not always like, sometimes it's perfectly fine. For some people, a job is a job. You have your number, you know what you want, then I want to retire, and then I want to go surfing in Portugal from the age of 45. I just want to be surfing in Portugal and maybe have a beach bar. And that's cool, that's fine. Or if it's ego, you're somebody who, what you really care about is that people perceive you to be successful and people respect you and they admire you. So
mm,
let's take somebody like Elon Musk. Sometimes I wonder, it's not as important to him to make money, but to be perceived as someone who's made money. So he bought Twitter. This might age. He bought Twitter. He lost a lot of money on it. From what I can tell, it's worth a lot less than what he paid for it. But he
mm.
doesn't care as long as people think he's cool and he
Right.
did the deal. Or Trump, he's doing a terrible job basically tagging the economy. But so long as people say he's great and he has a big military parade, it's great. So fueled by ego,
Mm,
um, or you're fueled by purpose, which is like there's something that you really, really care about. It drives everything you do, and that thing is like your obsession, and it pushes you. And ultimately, that's the thing that motivates you to do everything. So when people said, Chennai, what drives you as a founder? I was like, I'm ego. I'm ego. I'm ego. They were like, why? I said, I don't care. I don't care. I'm ego. I'm ego. And I said, I'm ego because you know what? As a black woman, as a black woman, as an African, everything, at some point, I just got tired of taking so much, insert a bleep word. I was taking so much bleep. I said, for once, I want to be the captain of my own destiny. And
mm,
also, I've been in so many environments where I just watched other people like me who were brilliant, who had so much to give, just taking so much bleep.
yeah.
And I said, for once, I want to create an environment that is like amazing. It's awesome. I want to build a company that treats people well. People excited to come to work. We do things right. Sometimes we make decisions that aren't just about how much money. It's not a charity. It's not charity. It's a business.
Mm,
Sometimes we make decisions that aren't just about making, an extra buck, squeezing an extra penny. But because in the round, it serves all of us. It serves community. It serves society. It serves us as people. Do you know what I mean? And I said, and the values, they're going to be based on the values of things that I really care about, and we're going to live those values. And if you're different, if you're queer, if you're black, or you're another person of color, if
mm,
you have some kind of disability, all kinds of people like that, you're front and center. You don't have to apologize for it. You come with all
mm.
your colors. It's going to be amazing. And I said, for once, I want to call the shots. But for once, I don't have to tiptoe around the things that other people care about. For once, it should be about the things that I truly value.
Yeah.
Then my really good friend Callie was like, "Chan, obviously, that's not ego, that's purpose."
Passion and purpose.
She said, obviously, that's not ego, it's purpose. It's
Yeah.
purpose. And then
Yeah.
working with my coach and working with a really great executive coach, she's also like, obviously, that's purpose. And I was like, yeah, I guess it is purpose. I really love people.
Mm,
And And I do love my work. I'm very, very passionate about my work. Actually, the team at Ask Chenai, they always like, Chenai, you're constantly working. I'm not. I have a lot of hobbies. I put the pen down, but I'm very, very passionate about my work. And I work with a
Mm,
real intensity.
yeah.
Like to work with me is to see it. Like I am intense and I am hard charging. And I make no apologies about that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what drives me is people. And I do think, like, all the things that I've seen growing up, I grew up in Zimbabwe. Granted, I grew up in a pretty, like, middle class, or you could say upper middle class environment. But I've seen a lot of things where I feel like it doesn't have to be this way,
Mm,
different. And we don't have to rely on charity. We, as exactly as we are, we can generate things that enrich and enable us and create more abundance for us and ultimately happier lives, better lives for our siblings, for our children, for our grandchildren, for everybody, for the
mm,
world to just be a better place. And that begins in people spend, 40, 60, 80 hours of their lives at work. Why
right.
don't we start by having workplaces that are actually like really, really awesome, values driven places
Yeah.
that allow people to be respected
Yeah.
and allow people to do well, where you uplift the ideas that really matter and that have the ability to make the world a better place. And I know I
Yeah.
sound corny, but it really is. So if that's my legacy, I would say a legacy of celebration of authenticity. Like
Mm,
I'm queer and I've always tried to uplift other queer people.
mm,
I have other queer people in my family. Try to
mm,
give them a platform. Don't hide yourself. Come out front and center. You're fine just the way you are.
yeah.
Deeply spiritual. I like to lead with love. You
Yeah.
matter. Acceptance. My sister says everybody has a spiritual gift.
Mm,
Everybody has a spiritual gift, and it's a gift where it's something that even when it doesn't make any sense, you exhibit that quality.
right.
So my best friend's gift is forgiveness.
Mm,
Even when she has no reason to forgive somebody, you
oof.
will see her forgive them. My
Wow.
sister's one is probably generosity. She gives and gives, even those who are pretty much undeserving. Like,
Mm,
yeah, hers is generosity. Mine is acceptance.
I love that. That was so powerful. Thank
What's
you for
your
being.
spiritual gift, Violet? Now
Oh
we're
my
getting
goodness.
spiritual gift.
I'm supposed to be asking the questions here.
The conversation, the two-way conversation. What is your spiritual gift?
You're putting me on the spot here. I think probably my one that probably my friends and my family always comment on the most. It's my ability to I'm going to say to be an empath. I really read into people's energy and I feel people's energy quite strongly. I mean, you might call that emotional intelligence if you will in a sort of technical term, but I've just got a natural ability to be able to sort of read people's energy, good or bad,
Empathy.
which yeah, I think empathy. And in some ways it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it really enables me to connect with people because I feel I'm very observant of my surroundings and I really try to be really supportive of people around me. And I think also just even in the work that I do, managing people, being a leader, I think empathy and emotional intelligence is a really, really powerful tool to have, and also outside of work as well, in my friendships, etc. But the reason I say sometimes it might be a bit of a curse because I feel so much because I'm so empathetic. Sometimes I end up just taking on too much of stuff that I shouldn't be carrying because it's not for me to carry because I feel so much. So, but yeah, that would be my spiritual gift, I would say, amongst other things.
That's a beautiful spiritual gift.
Thank
Empathy.
you.
That's a
Thank you.
beautiful spiritual gift. Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's do a little bit of a quick fire round to lighten things up. So I'm calling this segment screen time. So this is the bit where I want to know what your phone is saying tonight. So what is your average screen time? How much time
Okay.
do you spend on your mobile phone? And I
So
know
screen time.
ChatGPT is your best friend.
No, no, no. I didn't. I literally. Okay, here we go. I'm so just so you know, I'm telling the truth. Here it is. So it says my daily average is 6 hours and 2 minutes. Is that right? It doesn't seem right. But I think part of it is because when I go to sleep at night, I play a show. Are you one of those people who has a going to sleep show every night?
Always something. It's usually
What's
something
yours?
Spanish in some sort of telenovela in the background that I watch. I don't necessarily tune into it as much. It's more so that it's just in the background. But I love Spanish telenovelas. What's yours?
BoJack Horseman.
Interesting.
Every night,
Interesting.
depending on my mood, I pick a different season. I go to sleep
Ah.
every night to BoJack Horseman. So that's probably.
Oh.
But then if you want to see the app and website activity, I mean,
Oh.
WhatsApp is quite up there. So I've just
Yeah.
I've got WhatsApp, I've got LinkedIn. Eesh, do I spend that much time on LinkedIn? So it's got WhatsApp, Chrome, LinkedIn, ChatGPT, Gmail, Number Match, and Reddit.
Oh,
I spend a lot of
interesting.
time on Reddit. New York Times, Instagram. Yeah.
There's a whole variety there. I was going to ask you. My next question was, what app do you spend the most time on? But you've just answered that. And actually, you're right.
Yeah.
I think 6.5 hours is probably your daily average,
I spend a
rather than your weekly
lot of
average.
time on ChatGPT. I spend a lot of time on Reddit. I will not tell you my username, but I'm a Reddit commenter. Yeah, Reddit, and I like obviously WhatsApp,
Yeah.
Netflix.
There's a good mix of everything. Some from business to social to a little bit of keeping up to date with
Yeah,
what's going on
and
in the world.
I don't use TikTok. Don't ask me about TikTok. Yeah,
That's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Some people are usually either TikTok or Instagram. That's all good. I
no,
love that.
because
Thank you for
all the
sharing
young
that.
people, because all the young people are probably like, what about TikTok? What about
I don't know.
TikTok,
You
Auntie Chennai? I'm like, no, kids.
you
To
might be
everybody listening to
surprised.
this,
You might be surprised. You might be surprised. Okay, so next one. How many unread notifications do you have on your phone right now?
how do I know what an unread notification is?
So, for example, if you go to your WhatsApp or your SMSs, how many messages do you have that haven't been read? Or even emails, for example?
People don't read messages. So I have 27 emails, but many of them came this morning because I built a new bot to send out
Okay.
I built a new bot to send out notifications for my CRM. So I was
Ah,
testing it out. So most of those emails are from my bot. I am very neurotic. I don't even the thought. I think I once saw somebody who had 2,000 unread emails in their inbox, and I wanted to pass out. I was like,
that's a lot.
what could be in there? But that's why, obviously a big part of what we do. I told you one of my businesses, we offer ADHD support. We're
Mm,
virtual assistants. So if you
mhm.
pair that like of me, like I basically or have a team of people who are like me, like we'll help you, we'll get through all the
Yeah.
emails and all the stuff. Don't worry. But yeah, unread emails actually give me a lot of anxiety and notifications that are not responded to.
So you're very organized by the sounds of it.
I'm like, it's like a lot of people ask me if I am on the spectrum because I'm extremely like rigid and like organized about things like that.
Mm.
I'm not, yeah.
And-
I don't have ADHD.
oh,
I
yeah.
work with people who have ADHD, but I don't. Yeah, it's funny. I think it's funny because I've been talking a lot about ADHD. People must think I have ADHD. I don't
Yeah,
have
no,
any. A lot of people who have ADHD, I didn't want it to be. There's absolutely no shame in it. A lot of
my next question. What was the last thing that you wrote in your notes app?
the last thing I read my notes app. Give me a second. It was the post that I posted on LinkedIn. I wrote an article on LinkedIn yesterday about stuff, so I drafted in my notes app like so that's it was a post about AI and why we need to invest in the skills of the future.
Okay, okay, not too controversial. That's good. And then the final question: if you could have one famous change maker in keeping with the namesake of the podcast on speed dial, who would it be, and why? If you could have one person in your phone that you feel is a change maker, that either somebody famous, doesn't have to be famous, but somebody you think, "Oh, I would love to have this person on speed dial because they do such amazing work."
Just ask them for advice all the time.
Yeah.
Like, so anybody like dead or alive?
Dead or alive? Well, actually, actually, yeah. I'll make it easy for you. Dead or alive? Yes.
Tough. So somebody I could have on speed dial to just ask advice anytime I want to.
Yeah. Ask advice. It could be about entrepreneurship. It could be about leadership. It could be about anything that sort of speaks to your soul. All encompassing of the person that who you are. Who is that person? Maybe it could be somebody you can go and do karaoke with. That you think, oh my god, I would love to do a karaoke session with this person.
I've actually on speed dial, so I'm sorry, I'm very literal. So like I can just call them and ask them a question from time to time. Or I
Yeah.
can actually hang out with them as well.
Yeah, and you can hang out with them as well. So, when I say speed dial, like somebody who's like, this is the person in my circle.
It would be nice to be friends with Oprah. So maybe
Yes.
I love Oprah. She's so authentic and she made the playbook for leaning into who you are, to your authenticity. I love the way she talks to people, the way she interacts with people. And not everybody likes her. And it's funny because I realized I didn't, I thought everybody loved Oprah. And then I met people who didn't like her, which was weird because how can you not like Oprah? But
Yeah.
she's done the thing. She has done the thing, done it without compromising who she is, and she's built an entire brand on her values. And she's a savvy businesswoman, and she's cool. And I would like to have her, because then I could also ask her things like, "What was Maya Angelou like? What would she have said?"
Oh, that's an excellent choice. I love that. I love that. We love
Yeah,
some Oprah. She's amazing. She's amazing. Really,
But I
really.
wish that I could
That's
I
okay.
wish
That's
that I
okay.
could also connect with some of my ancestors, like my grandfather,
Ah,
who I never met. Yeah, I wish that. Yeah,
oh, I
and
love
my
that.
great 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 aunt, who I named my business Xeroxa after. Her name was Nzira.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I wish I could connect with some of them and get their steer.
I can really feel that you're very driven by your values and the fact that you named one of your companies after one of your ancestors. That's really, really beautiful. And it's a beautiful note to end on, Chenai. I've absolutely loved this conversation. Where can people find you if they want to follow you, learn more about you, what you do? What's the best platform to reach out to you?
I'm always on LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn all the time. I love to connect with people. So you should follow me on LinkedIn. If you want to learn more about my two businesses, Ask Chenai, you can visit our website at askchenai.com. You can learn more about us there. And Xeroxa, which is where we focus on innovation in the built environment and beyond. So a lot of impact investing. You can visit us at Xeroxa. We have a number of projects on the go. You might find one that you can join us and collaborate with.
Thank you so much. You've been a pleasure. Thank you so much to everyone for listening in. Please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and be sure to tune in into the next episode. Thank you, Chenai.
Thank you so much.